Do we have any public items not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll jump right to our first presenter, our own Bradley Seaman, who's had tons of free time lately. Nothing really going on over there. But disc golf, solitaire.
Yeah, it just came back off a little vacation, guys. So really quickly, thank you guys for helping me get these in. I feel like I've been in these meetings more than most other times. Really excited about this. What we have here is some of our spending from the CTCL grant. So what I have for you guys is a new area for me, and I hope I got it right on our RCA, but this is a service to purchase the reader board sign for the election center. We're gonna be using some of the CTCL grant to get a 3-foot tall by 8-foot wide sign.
Nice.
Which will be a digital sign that we can put up whatever information pertinent to the election. We pulled some strings. We're going to temporarily install it so we can get it in for this election, and then we're going to go through the process with construction A&E to get it permanently added. And a huge thanks to Jason and Jason for helping me get that all together, as well as Allison for helping me create content. So this is the sales agreement for that sign. Due to the amount, we wanted to run it through the commissioners for sign off.
That's great. Bradley, did you have to do any permitting for the city?
So there's a temporary sign permit, is my understanding on that. And that with it going on the trailer for election day, we're just doing a temporary sign permit. We are hoping to get it actually about a week beforehand.
On a trailer, it probably gets them to calm down a little bit.
Yep. And then from there, it is within the size allowance for permanent installation. So we're thinking ahead, trying to get out good information now.
Great. That's fantastic. Great getting the grant. Great doing this.
Bradley, something to look into, and our planning staff might be able to help with this. Certainly Development Services would be, but there are city regulations in terms of movable text signage or how the text is displayed on an electronic sign. Yours truly might have had, rumor has it, may have had some involvement in that regulation from a decade ago. So something to check at least.
Yeah, Dave, we actually did have Paul make sure that the sign complied with city zoning requirements prior to purchase. So,
well, and even apart from the hardware itself, if you're programming the display of the text, I don't know if that's something you also looked into, but the big debate back in the day is whether having dancing turkeys animated across the sign was going to be allowable or not. So I'm assuming there will be no dancing turkeys on your sign, but you never know. You never know.
I voted stickers and flags waving in the background. We had grand plans, but we'll double check to make sure.
Dave, I'm grateful that the city council took on these really pertinent issues and ensured public safety. And I just hate to think what it would have been like to have raised children here in an era where turkeys danced on signs. And I'm grateful for your service, Dave.
Thank you. It's a much better place than it could have been.
And oh no! Wait a minute. What am I saying? We got to do our motions and all.
Yeah, I move to approve the chair sign the sales agreement with Fast Signs.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Bradley, and thanks for getting on this so quickly.
Yeah, thank you all. And just a quick update. I got to plug this in. We've received back almost 1/3 of the ballots that we mailed out for this election. I don't think record setting quite covers what this election will be like for the county, the state, and the nation.
Well done.
Well, and congratulations, Bradley. I thought I would personally test out your election center ballot drop-off process, and it worked really smoothly. I almost felt I needed to get tested for COVID while I was rolling through the drop-off area, though. But
so, Bradley, could you refresh my mind on what's the current law on bringing more than your ballot to the drop-off? Like if Dave was going to bring Gretchen's too, what's the issue there?
Not that I necessarily did that, but
yeah.
No, and so currently there are no additional reporting requirements previously under the Ballot Interference Protection Act, you could bring in up to 6, but you had to report it. For this, there is no capped limit and no reporting. So you can bring in anybody else's ballot to be dropped off.
Okay.
One of the big aspects that we're really talking about, on Tuesday, we received a ballot every 13 seconds in person through that drive-through drop-off.
So I have this sense, Bradley, there's a little bit of lack of clarity out there in the world on if you can bring another person's ballot or not. I'm going to put the blame on the national media that it's different in different states, and there's been lots of hullabaloo, and then there was that issue in North Carolina. So I think added it all up, there's just a general lack of clarity. So if there's a way to get the word out, yes, you can bring your spouse's, friend's, child's ballot in, please do. Well, that might be a good thing to get out there.
Absolutely. We got a press conference this afternoon, and I'll make sure that we get that included too.
Great. Thanks for all your good work.
Bradley,
thanks, everyone.
Didn't the Supreme Court just recently overturn the Ballot Protection Act, and so it's a brand new thing?
No, so the
Okay.
Ballot Interference Protection Act was currently listed as enjoined and wasn't even challenged by the Secretary of State. So we finally have some clear laws around this election. We are allowed to do a mail ballot election, which is great because that ship has sailed. The Ballot Interference Protection Act will remain enjoined throughout the process of this election, and postmarks will not apply. So those were the big confusions that were challenged court cases, and they all were decided as of Friday last week.
Great. And that some of that will be in the meat of your press conference today.
So we really covered that last week a little bit. Really here, our big aspect is with receiving a ballot every 13 seconds, we've been encouraging people to check My Voter page. There is a 24-hour delay between when the data gets entered in the system and when it appears. And we're a little backlogged because we've never had an election where we've received a third of our ballots in 2 days. So we're going to work through the weekend. We've got extra staff in, and we're going to make sure that by Monday, that's fully reporting and updated for voters so that they can feel confident in that tool as well.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you all. We got 3 weeks and then it's just be closed out.
And Bradley, if you need anything, please ask straight away. Don't hesitate in the least.
You know, I really have to say I've been feeling the support of all of the county between different departments, the communications team, Chris and Ann. We're feeling the community involvement, and that's fantastic.
Great.
All right, I'll let you go for the afternoon. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
See ya.
Andrew, you're up next.
All right. Well, yesterday we had the rating agency presentation for the bond issuance supporting the fairgrounds, and I can't remember one that went better. It just absolutely was an exceptional presentation, and the rating agencies at the end had virtually no questions. We anticipate having a rating next Friday, hopefully, to keep within our schedule to get out before the end of the year. And yeah, I couldn't have been more pleased with the way it went, and I expect that we'll get our rating reaffirmed at the AA level. Although this is a somewhat lesser credit than a limited term obligation bond. The GO bond is our highest credit limited term obligation bond, second tier. This one is just a little bit below it, but we portrayed it as a credit that would be a limited obligation bond throughout the POS. I think it will be rated as one, so I anticipate having the same rating as our limited obligation bonds. Having said that, today I'd like to approve the preliminary official statement, which you all got an email and has been thoroughly vetted by our bankers at Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, our financial advisor, Fieldman Rollout, and our bond counsel, Dorsey Whitney, as well as the finance staff. So it's free of error, and it's very, very well written. Within the parameters resolution, we always like to go a little bit higher on the numbers because what will happen the morning of the issuance, Chris and I chief administrative officer, chief financial officer will sit and we'll look at the scale. They'll bring us a scale out for 30 years and what interest rate they want at each of those. I should mention this is a 30-year issuance because of the structure at the fairgrounds. We're able to go out 30 years, so that lowered the debt service. They'll bring us a scale. We'll show the interest rates at each of those levels, and they'll go out. We'll look at it, we'll say, all right, fine, that's if it looks good to us, they'll go out to the market. The marketplace will start bidding on those different maturities. And sometimes banks want specific maturities and you have an over subscription in a particular maturity. So that's when we start ratcheting down the interest rates. We ratchet them down until we have just enough buyers in that particular maturity or maturities to meet our needs. And once that's done, we will look at it over. We'll bring it to the chair of the board, Commissioner Slotnick, who will then approve the final scale, and with the endorsement of our financial advisors, Bank of Merrill Lynch and ourselves. And we'll go ahead and sign off on that. So in the parameters resolution, we have a not to exceed underwriter's discount for Bank of America Merrill Lynch of 0.60% on the total par amount of the issuance. We have a par amount which is right now at 17 million. We're not going over 15 million. We have a true interest cost of 4.50%. Currently it's 3.15 and it's dropping. And you got to remember that's over a 30-year period. That's why it sounds a little higher than it is. And the term of the bonds, we've put at 31 years, just if there's some date issues with the redemption of the bond anticipation note from First Security Bank or not. So that in a nutshell is what's in the parameters resolution that I'm asking you to approve, as well as the preliminary official statement.
Hey, Andrew, this is Dave, and I do see that Cameron Evans from the Missoulian joined us. I thought the message that you sent out the other day explaining how this relates to the actual ongoing work that has been done at the fairgrounds and that will continue to be done, how this bond issuance relates to that. So could you just say a few words
Sure.
for the layperson out there who's trying to make heads or tails of how this actually is paying for work on the ground?
Sure, absolutely. Emily's done an exceptional job moving the progress at the fair forward, and because she was moving so quickly in the beginning, we issued a $6 million bond anticipation note. We weren't ready yet to go into the bond market, so we issued the bond anticipation note to cover that first $6 million of construction. Since that period of time, we were hesitant going back into the market, so we had that bond anticipation note extended a couple of times. And then the remainder of the construction we've been taking out of cash that's been going into her account that's set up for the assessments. She's spent, I think, somewhere close to $10 million. So these bonds will take out the bond anticipation note, will also pay for the construction that she's had to date, and then provide for funds for the future construction up to $15 million. And we will be issuing some premium bonds, which is kind of a hard concept to grasp onto, but at these low interest rates, the market makers or the banks don't want to take these low interest bonds into their portfolio, so they'll pay us additional cash to bring up the interest rate of the bonds. That's called premium bonds. And so we have some of those in there, and those will take care of all the expenses of the bond issuance as well. So I hope I answered the question correctly.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
No, that's good. I will go ahead and make the motion that we authorize the chair to sign the resolution.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Andrew, I want to ask you just a quick question on the the basic difference between limited obligation bonds and general obligation bonds? Is the core difference there that the GO bond goes to the voters and the limited obligation bond doesn't, or is there some other piece of framework in there that's also different?
Well, no, that's the essence of it. It is voted, and it's something that can be taxed without going out or without a voted. Well, a vote of the people provides that taxation. The limited obligation bond is something that isn't done with the vote and can only go up to $2 million. The general obligation bond goes up to whatever level the people approve.
Thanks.
You got it.
And thanks for doing this.
My pleasure. I enjoy this.
Great. All right, Emily, this follows on the heels quite well.
Yeah, thanks so much, Andrew. And I just want to say one of the reasons why we're able to get this loan and finance this project is not just because of Andrew's great work in the past, 6 months and his team's great work in the past 6 months pulling together the package, but the reason is because the county is a good steward of taxpayers, and we have a great bond rating, and these agencies know that we're gonna do right by their loan. We're gonna spend it appropriately, and we're gonna pay it back. And so that's actually something that takes decades to that kind of reputation takes decades to cultivate. And Andrew really in the county's done a really good job at that for a really long time, and so. It's just one of those things you kind of take for granted. Not all governments operate at such a high a level with their finance. So I really appreciate that.
Thanks for saying that, Emily.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you.
So this is the last GMAX amendment for the Historic Plaza. When I first brought you this project, we knew it was going to be complicated for a number of reasons, with all the underground utilities that were being abandoned and us not knowing where they were and all of the multi-layers, and then us staying open the whole time. It's just a really complicated project, and all the other projects in the fairgrounds are going to be a lot simpler in the sense moving forward in terms of like the learning center, the Rocky Mountain Exploration Center, which is what the learning center is called now. And the maintenance shop that we're building is very simple, straightforward, new building. So anyways, this one's pretty complicated and there's a lot of overlapping layers. We made these scope changes because we think that they will save us money in maintenance in the long term. Chris is raising his hand.
Ham, I'm sorry to interrupt your flow, but commissioners, you did not make a motion or vote on Andrew's item.
Wait, then Dave?
I thought I made a motion. Maybe we didn't get a second or a vote. I don't know.
Yeah, if you did, Dave, I apologize. Staff missed it. I double checked with Emmy and she didn't catch it either. So
Yeah, I definitely moved that we authorize Josh to sign the resolution, but maybe that's where it ended.
Second.
Hey, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Thanks for catching that.
thanks.
sorry, and thank you for doing that again if it was a second.
So these scope changes are mostly to do with decisions we made after the original design. Some of them were design that were errors in design and we had to correct, and some of them were the majority of them were just decisions we made later, like, okay, it's gonna like sealant on the seat walls, to prevent graffiti, and things that we couldn't be helped, like the original spec for some of the irrigation heads. You can't get them anymore because supply chains are messed up with COVID, stuff like that. So there's kind of an array of things, and then some additional planters that we added after being out there this summer and feeling the heat island in some of our concrete areas. We want to add, we decided to add a little more vegetation. And then some asphalt in the parking lot. We had to regrade. So where the edge of the, basically beyond by the new concessions and kind of the edge of the commercial building curb there between commercial building and the ice rink, we had to regrade and put in a curb. And so then we obviously, when we had to cut out the asphalt to regrade it, we have to put it back. And so there's that piece. So it's just kind of an assortment of things that came up that we didn't originally anticipate. It's nothing that we would have had to pay for it anyways. So like I said, it's scope changes. Jackson's been a really good partner with us. We had a lot of issues with the way the concrete was poured by the subcontractor, and Al Brule, God bless him, has made them re-pour concrete many times because cracks appeared. And Jackson has been a really good partner in insisting on that and backing us and supporting our demands where it could have been there could have been more controversy around them, but because Jackson just totally agreed with us and backed us on those demands, we're going to have a perfect project, which is what, of course, we should have. And so Jackson's been a really great partner, and yeah, so these are some finishings, and I'm really excited because we are almost done with this project. And when it is wrapped up here in the next couple days or this week, we will take down the chain link fence around the construction, and it will be open, and we'd love to have you guys come out. It's really looking good. We just got all the plantings in earlier this week, and which is actually kind of perfect that it's raining, so that's kind of a nice thing. And then we are going to Rainmaker Irrigation is out here now. They're putting in some of the final irrigation, and we're going to lay down some sod. Oh, another thing that came up that is like one of those things you can't control is that the community sod farms ran out of sod, which is like, I didn't know it was a thing. So just like, you know, there's always something. So
when are we scheduled to come out?
Yeah.
I don't think we have that on the schedule yet. Sarah, let's work on this after today and getting the commissioner scheduled for a tour.
Definitely.
Yeah, and we're not planning like a big, of course, normally we would plan a big ribbon cutting, but with COVID, we're not going to do that. And we'll hope that the big ribbon cutting is next year at the fair when we have vaccinations and everybody is healthy.
Yeah,
well, I moved.
Too cold. Sorry.
I was going to say, I moved to approve the GMAX amendment.
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Thanks.
Someone has their hand up.
Andrew.
Andrew.
Yeah, it's me again. Sorry, with that last resolution that the last motion you made, Dave, I think you did, you moved to sign the resolution, but I don't think I heard you approve the POS as well. It was a two-part.
Okay.
I'm sorry. You'd move just to have Josh sign the resolution and approve the preliminary agreement. That would be great.
Well, and I don't know if I was muted when I made my truncated motion, but let the record show I had intended to move item 2.
Thank you so much.
Second. Thanks for being on top of that, Andrew.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thanks.
What else do we need a do-over on here?
All right. I think Kyla's up next.
Yeah, hi, good morning. I am here again to present to you some contracts to request for approval. And they're funded through 2 types of funding sources, but they're kind of staggered differently, so they're not grouped together by the funding source. So I will just give an overview of the 2 funding sources, and then if it's okay with you, I'll just go through each item and then approve them all at once. Okay, so the 2 funding sources are through the Financial Admin Fund and then the Substance Abuse Prevention Mill Levy. The mill levy was approved in 2008 by the voters for prevention activities in Missoula. Item 4 is a professional service agreement with Missoula in Motion for $9,900. This is to provide support for their wide variety of programs that encourage sustainable transportation. Number 5 is a contract with All Nations Health Center for $5,000, and this is funded through the Substance Abuse Prevention Mill Levy, and this is to support their youth-guided, culturally appropriate substance abuse programs. Number 6 is a professional service agreement with Missoula Valley Transportation Management Agency, and this is to support their van pool services, and that's funded through the Financial Admin Fund. Number 7 is a contract with Western Montana Mental Health Center for $72,199, and this is to support their flagship program, which is they provide out-of-school programs for Missoula kids kindergarten through 12th grade, and that's funded through the Substance Abuse Prevention Mill Levy. Any questions?
Good
Nope,
stuff.
I think we've seen them all before, so thanks.
Yeah.
I would move that we approve items 4 through 7.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, do we have any correspondence? Okay, how about, I imagine Adrian would be able to chat with us about the team deployment to the Northern Cheyenne.
You bet. So Commissioner Strohmeyer had requested that upon the team's return that maybe we could get Ken Parks, who was the IC that went with the team, to give a bit of a brief of their experiences there and what they were able to accomplish. And so Ken Parks is with us today, and we'll be happy to answer your questions as well as kind of talk about how the team deployed over there and some of the successes that they had. So we were very happy to be able to support that mission.
Super.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Ken. So we were requested by the state DES to deploy to the Northern Cheyenne. That happened on September 18th. So they called up Adrian and asked, they identified that the Northern Cheyenne was having a real problem over there. A lot of your normal people that worked in the Board of Health and on their team had been put into quarantine or were actually sick themselves with the COVID-19. So they made a request to us that we bring out an EOC support team. So we called everybody that we knew that was on the team, and we got about 8 people together. I went as the incident commander. We had Nick Holloway as the PIO. We took Missoula Fire Department, Ron Brunell, and Chris Kovach and Brad Davis. Ron was the plan section chief, Chris was logistics section chief, and Brad Davis was going as the medical unit leader, but then his job got changed when we got there. And we also took Max Rebholz as a PIO trainee from our office, and John Muir as a logistics section trainee from Missoula Rural Fire, and Pete Giordano from Missoula Rural Fire. So the 8 of us got together. And one of my major concerns was, how are we going to keep the team safe over there? Because, of course, we're going to a hot spot. There's a lot of COVID spread. So I requested that the state DES provide us with RVs, and we stayed at a KOA in Hardens where we could cook our own meals and kind of sleep separately. I had some concerns about staying at the motel in Hardin. Motels just kind of made me nervous during this outbreak, but it worked out really well. We were able to maintain our team as kind of a unit of one, and stay fairly isolated from much of the community and things as we did our work. And the DNRC provided us a command trailer that they owned that we were able to set up and use as office space. It had, exactly 8 office spaces in it, which worked out great for us. So we were able to set up outside of their health department with our command trailer. And when we arrived, they definitely were short on staff. They were doing everything they needed to do, but a lot of, kind of loops weren't getting closed, and some communication barriers were in place. And some long-term planning hadn't been done. So we arrived, and their team kind of had a great idea for us to kind of move in underneath them and assume deputy positions so that we could train them and kind of let them look at our processes and give them some clues and hints on how a type 3 team works. So we all kind of worked in there. They accepted us like family. They were really warm to us. It took a little while, you know, to break the ice, you know, and let them know what our intentions were. We were only there to help them and not to take over or do any of that big government type stuff. That we truly were there just to help them the way possible. So after that, kind of smooth that out, they put us in underneath their team. We organized kind of got their planning P set up, a meeting schedule, if you will, where we could have a morning briefing and a stakeholders call, some planning meetings throughout the day. I participated in a couple conference calls at 10 o'clock and at 3 o'clock. We were there in addition to some state resources that were already there. They had some EMTs on scene. The National Guard was there assisting with driving, mostly delivering food and helping drive ambulances. So, and then they also had a couple nurses who were doing actual home contacts, and they had a couple drivers assigned to them. So we got on scene. We organized things. We were able to provide them quite a bit of good training in anywhere that we could. We ended up developing this executive summary that we sent out to you guys that kind of tells the story of what each section did. Chris Kovach, who had worked quite a bit in the COVID response for the Southwest Zone, he had some great ideas, and we ended up developing a couple of COVID cleaning trailers for them so that they could clean their alternative care sites or their Q&I sites. And also they were paying this, you know, exuberant amount for cleaning from a contractor out of Billings. And so we were able to kind of get them some cost saving as well by getting them their own crews together to do this cleaning. So that went really well. The 2 weeks went by really quickly. At the end of it, they weren't quite ready for us to go yet. I think that they would have kept us till Christmas if they could have, but you know, we set them up as well as we could for success. We had a good closeout with them. They were very pleased with what we did for them, and the state DES was also pleased. In addition, we were able to build the plan section built a dashboard, a public-facing dashboard that kind of kept a ticker on active cases. Something that they'd kind of been missing was kind of information out to the public, and Nick Holloway was able to tie in with their public information PR people, and they really put out a lot of good products, put out a lot of good flyers. We worked additionally with the CDC was down there, the Center for Disease Control, and they brought in an epidemiologist who started to track some things, and we were able to kind of collaborate with them and get the information going. But it was very interesting down there, you know, the different layers between the BIA and the IHS, the Indian Health Services, and then their own public health nursing. There was kind of a lot of people doing things, but not a lot of communication happening. So when we got our incident action plan together, it kind of helped pull that whole thing into one picture and get them a good look at what was going on over there. But we had an excellent deployment. We did end up with 2 people on the crew being a close contact to a positive, and they had to leave early to go quarantine back at home. But all in all, they ended up testing negative. So that turned out to be okay. We expected something like that to happen, and really that was the lesser of many evils that could have happened. So we were really glad that that worked out. We're all back home now. We're doing well, and we're looking at, you know, doing what we can for Missoula County now. So, but we had a great assignment. We learned a lot, especially working with the CDC and some of these other health departments. And the experience that we brought from working with in March and April and May and June with our own health department, we had a lot of products already developed that we were able to just change the header on and give them these kind of products for cleaning protocols and for Q&I protocols that we'd already built for Missoula County. And we were able to transfer over to them, and they were really appreciative of many of the documents we had. And I think that it was an overall a great success, and appreciate you guys' support, allowing this team to be formed and for us to go out and get experience like this and to provide that help within the state. This was the first time that the state DES has actually ordered us for an in-state assignment. So we were really excited to be able to stand up and to go out and help our own Montanans. It was kind of a breakthrough assignment for us, and feel really good about it and appreciate your guys' support. So if there's any questions, go ahead and hit me with them.
Thanks. And yeah, what a great testament to our, not only your leadership and the rest of the team members, but just our ability as the county to share our resources in a time of need and to work across the continental divide.
Yeah. Yeah. Bridging nations.
Totally. Yeah.
What's the population of the Northern Cheyenne, Ken?
The actual on the reservation, there's about 3,500, but they have about another 2,000 or so that live off the reservation but are part of the tribe.
So you guys, yeah, working with about 5,500 folks to.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and they'd had a devastating outbreak amongst their elders, you know, and much of the emphasis of their culture is those, they call them the knowledge holders, you know, these people who, you know, are very, very important to their society and to their culture. And so they were very serious down there about obeying the rules. They had a lot of curfews set up. And they were, you know, they were very serious about protecting their elders. They had a kind of an interesting saying that I think went back from a long ways, but it was, stay still, you know, remain at home, you know, and let the enemy pass. And it was kind of one of their tribal sayings that they had. And I thought it really reflected well with what we were trying to do. So it was very fascinating to go down, and I think we built a relationship that will continue into the future. They've requested that perhaps we could go down and teach some ICS classes to them, and kind of, I would love to mentor them as they kind of start to build their own team, because they were very impressed with what the power of a team can bring and just that process, that organizational process. So, you know, I'm looking forward to hopefully continuing this relationship and building on what we've done and helping them, you know, become a better incident command system down there. So we're planning that out lightly, you know, for next spring, perhaps taking a trip down there and teaching some classes for them.
Fantastic.
How are their
Yeah.
numbers now?
What's that, Josh?
How are their numbers now? How are they doing?
Their
now?
numbers are dropping. They're less than 5 a day. I've been checking on the thing,
right.
on the spread. So they're in a good spot right now. If it's just the
Great.
surrounding areas, you know, that really are scary with the uptick in Billings and, you know, and being in that rural environment, they do have to leave the county to shop and do many of the things for their day-to-day. Requires them to travel to some of these hotspots just to get the things they need to survive. You know, it's a bit of a what do they call that? A grocery desert. You know, there's not a lot of food in Lame Deer itself. But so a lot of their shopping and things takes them to the outside. So they're still stand at that critical. You know, it's very risky for them. But I'm really hoping that they can maintain this leveled off situation that they're at.
Great.
Ken, I've got a question for you. So it sounds like one of the main roles you played was in providing support to strengthen their organizational incident command structure there in Lame Deer and on the Northern Cheyenne reservation. But beyond that, were there anything like the COADs that we have here in Missoula County in place, and I guess even a little bit beyond that? I have heard from folks here in the community who were aware of our deployment of the team to Lame Deer, asking, is there anything that we can do clear over here in Missoula County by way of community organizations who would be willing to help? Are there unmet needs that folks could get plugged into and providing additional assistance?
You know, I think they seem to be doing well with food donations, and that sort of thing seems to be coming in on the regular. And that was kind of slowing down. They were feeding a lot of people to keep them their at-risk population. They were trying to keep them at home and bring them food. You know, they're a health department. I think that they could possibly just use maybe a check-in and some advice on the ever-changing landscape around the CDC rules, on contact tracing, on how some of that works. Their community, though, Dave, is really based on family, and they really take care of each other. Most of the things are organized into societies, and each of these different tribal societies had kind of a different role to play. It really looked different than what we're used to kind of seeing, but they were getting it done. You know, some of the communication parts, because there was some duplication of services and some things where people weren't really communicating well. I think they're used to gathering and talking face to face. They didn't like to call each other on the cell phone very much, which, you know, we're just so used to, well, what's everybody's cell numbers? And they were like, oh, you know, he's my cousin. I don't really know his number. I just go and see him, you know? So it was just kind of fascinating. But I think that they were doing really well down there, Dave. I don't know how much more we could do for them from this far away, but it's just kind of a different kind of look at things that they got over there.
Thanks. Yeah, that's super helpful. I really appreciate the update, and it's always good to have a bit of a debrief on what our fine county staff are up to.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I always have to thank you guys again for the opportunity to go. I mean, it does really represent Missoula very well. So I appreciate your guys' support through all of it. And, you know, of course, we left Adrian here much on her own, and she was working 3 jobs basically the whole time we were gone. And I really appreciate the work that Adrian does and the work she's done to get this team set up. She's an amazing part of it, even though she doesn't go out with us. She's a critical element to the success that we have.
That's great stuff. So you described the kind of teaching you all were able to do. Is there anything you feel like you are bringing back for us? For your crew, any lessons learned for you guys?
You know, what we always learn is how to communicate better, you know, and communicate on different ways than we're used to communicating. When we go into these places, and when, you know, sometimes they say to really know something, you have to teach it. And so we always, when you're trying to coach somebody, you always kind of look at your own process, and, you know, and just always being able to go in with that mindset of we're here to help and we're here to be flexible, and we're not going to impose any kind of system upon, you know, these jurisdictions that cause the help, no matter who they are. You know, we're here to help and to refine the systems they have in place. But we really focus on that attitude of being there to help, not being there to take something over, or you know, and just to remain as flexible as possible, and understand that, you know, in different places, when they say a meeting's at 3 o'clock and it really doesn't start till 3:30, it makes my plan section chief kind of itchy, because he's a very on time kind of guy. We just had to adjust, you know, and so what we learn is to be flexible, you know, and to not look so deep within ourselves, but to truly go there with the idea that we're there to help, and that we work with what we have, and be as successful as possible.
Great,
this is so great to hear, and I'm so happy that there's feeling about maintaining this relationship and continuing it.
Yeah, we're excited about that part too. I think it's a really good opportunity for us, and you know, they invited us, if we come down at the right time, they might even take us on a buffalo hunt.
That'd be special, man.
Yeah.
Would. Great.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you so much for that. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, you guys.
All right, we're up to communication needs, requests, comments / instructions. Anything there?
I don't have anything. I don't know if Cameron, it looks like Cameron's still on the line. If she has any questions.
I don't think I do at the moment. I was just curious to hear about the deployment with COVID, so that was interesting.
Great, thanks. All right, any new COVID stuff? Adrian?
Yeah, Commissioner, so I have a couple updates. With our non-congregate shelter, we did receive our next 30-day extension, so that will take us into November with approval from FEMA to continue on with that activity. To date, we have served about 136 individuals with non-congregate sheltering since March. I shared with Dave yesterday that we have submitted 2 project applications to FEMA for reimbursement. One was for our Emergency Operations Center activities, March through June, and the other was for non-congregate shelter activities for the same time period. And I'm happy to report that our EOC project application has been obligated, which means that we should see a check to Missoula County within a couple days. We're actually hoping that we might get it before the week closes out, which is fantastic. And Andrew, yeah. Feel good
Andrew
about
just
that.
did a cartwheel.
That is the first round I've ever seen. And in fact, we actually had correspondence this morning from FEMA regarding our non-congregate shelter project application, and we expect determination on that and obligation for that very shortly as well. So right now we're working on our next project applications, which will be from July 1 through the end of September for non-congregate shelter activities. We have minimal EOC activities, but we'll capture those as well. Additionally, around the conversation about FEMA's continued engagement and involvement with non-congregate shelter activities, as I've mentioned before, there's a discussion occurring at the federal level as to where that eventually lands, whether it's with HUD or it stays with FEMA. Essentially, as long as there is an open emergency or an open disaster, it will remain with FEMA. And the HHS, the Federal Health and whatever it is,
Health and Human Services.
Yeah. They requested an extension of another 90-day period to keep that disaster open. That disaster was set to expire at the end of October. And so now we are pretty assured that it will remain as an eligible expense and an eligible FEMA activity until late January. And then hopefully we'll have a little bit more clarity as that goes. But from our planning purposes, that kind of gives us another 3 months to have expectations that we'll be continuing to work with FEMA.
So Adrian, does that money cover a certain amount of months of non-congregate shelter? That check coming?
So the check coming that we know is coming covers all of the activities that we had out of the Emergency Operations Center that were not non-congregate shelter.
Okay. Sorry.
But the other project application, which we expect to get determination on very, very shortly, will cover all of those costs for non-congregate shelter. And as you will recall, FEMA will pick up 75% of all of our costs, and that remaining 25% through a governor's declaration very early on in the pandemic, the remaining 25% is going to be picked up by the state. Now, the future of that 25% is somewhat in question as we get a new governor, but also as the CARES Act expires at the end of the year. So we're attempting to get as much into the FEMA system as we can before the end of the calendar year so that we're assured that 25% match by the state.
So is that project approval the money itself, or is the project approval just an approval so that we can get money later?
The latter. So essentially it says that it's an eligible activity. We still have to follow all the guidelines and we still have to front all of the costs with the expectation that because it is an eligible activity, we will be reimbursed for those costs.
Have we yet been reimbursed for any of the non-congregate shelter?
No, that is our first project application that went in for March through June. And it's gone through a dizzying amount of back and forth with FEMA and what they call the CRC, which I don't even know what that acronym stands for, but that's essentially where they have people that are reviewing all of our documentations. I mean, line item detail of absolutely every penny that we've spent. And the questions have been very straightforward, but it has been pretty time consuming.
I'm going to go with community reimbursement cost.
There you go.
Or the catch-all relocation cup. Anything. But thanks for all of that.
You bet.
And it sounds like big progress. Okay, do we have any upcoming events or invitations? Anything else? Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.